We are live, coming at you with a heavy talk this morning. No, not too heavy. Even if it is heavy, we'll be able to lift it together. We're going to be talking about guilt this morning. And if you're asking yourself, man, why is this? Why are you wearing headphones? I'm wearing these sound canceling headphones because I have a small puppy or a dog, small dog, and a small child. And if they start screaming, I'll do my best so that you can't hear them, but also it makes it so it doesn't distract me. Hope you guys are doing super good. If you are here, feel free to let me know in the comments. I want this to be interactive today as we talk about solving guilt, and let's dive in. So first of all, let's define guilt, right? And specifically, what kind of guilt? This is guilt around who we are because of the actions we've done or are currently doing, right? Now, the question is, why would we want to solve for guilt? Well, really simply, guilt is a disempowering emotion that drains your energy and motivation. So once you can solve for guilt, you can use this empowering energy that now you have to take action towards what you want. And the fact of the matter is, you're human. So the first thing in order to solve guilt is changing our perspective, right? And then I'll tell you a story, or maybe, I don't want to make it about me, so maybe I won't tell you a story, but we'll interact together and solve for guilt in real time. So the truth is, you're human. You will not be perfect as much as we try to be, right? When you make the big blunder, it's critical that you're able to bounce back. And I'm reading from my notes here. You have so much to be proud about, but our experience of life is what we focus on. So if we focus on, we'll say, the actions that are making us feel guilty, if it's around food and body transformation, it's like, well, I skipped that workout, or, I ate that thing, and we feel what we focus on, right? Where focus goes, energy flows, results soon follow. You can go to a party and look at one side of the party and you see, a person in the corner kind of, looking down with a couple of others. No one's interacting and talking. You can say, man, this party sucks. This party's lame. You can look at the other side of the party and you can see people dancing on tables, passionately embracing all of this stuff. And you'll be like, wow, this party's off the hook, right? Same party, but you're just looking at different sides. And the same thing is true with you. The fact of the matter is, you are not one event. You are not one person, or you are one person, but you are not one type of person, right? It's human beings tend to categorize people, even ourselves, and put them into boxes because it's easy to compartmentalize thinking, to say like, oh, that's a bad person, that's a happy person, that's a mean person, that's a kind person. And we tend to do the same things with ourselves when it comes to taking, we'll say, less than desirable actions. And this is especially true if it's something you really didn't like that you did from years ago that you're still holding on to for guilt. And it doesn't even have to be around food or whatever. We're talking about holistic approach, right? So this whole game could be anything. It could be the fact that you yelled at a significant other and made them feel worthless, and you've held on to that pain. It could be the fact that you didn't do something while your parents were alive, and because of that you hold on to that guilt. It could be the fact that you were unfaithful to a spouse and you hold on to that guilt. It could be the fact that you missed an important event that you should have been to. The fact of the matter is, we're holding on to guilt, and it is disempowering us. And what we need to do is get past it. So, see that thumbs up. That's funny. So what we need to do is gather evidence, possibly for the first time in years. So what we're going to do is actually, on this live, we're going to take some time to do that. Right? We're going to grab a sheet of paper. You're going to pull out your phone, and you're going to take some notes with me. And I'm going to do this with you in real time. Because the fact of the matter is, like I mentioned, you wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? You have so many things that you can be proud of. But the fact of the matter is, at this moment in time, if you are experiencing guilt, there's a part of you that, again, is so focused on that negative. And if we think about what the opposite of guilt is, it's pride. It's being proud, right? Guilt, usually when you're guilty, if you think about feeling guilty about something, you don't want to tell people, you don't want to share it. You're holding on to it, your dirty little secret, right? You're holding on to it. What's the opposite of guilt? Pride. Pride, you want to tell everyone. Pride is like, yeah, I did that. When there's an action that you feel guilty about, you're like, oh, I hope nobody finds out. And I think we've all been there. So what we need to do is overpower the guilt with pride. And this isn't a one and done action. You see, we all have a record player that's going on in our head. And that record player, if it's been on the same record for a long time, it's not going to change its tune with one edit to the record. It needs consistent and deliberate edits until it's a completely different record. You don't even recognize the previous tune. And all of this comes back to what we talk about a lot here, which is changing our identity. We must have an identity that empowers us to act, not disempower us, okay? So let's dive in. If you are here, let me know in the comments. And I forgot to tag everyone as well. Let me tag everyone, and then we'll keep talking about this. And we're going to make it interactive, and we're going to dive into this together as well. All right. So if you're just tuning in, or if you've been tuning in for a while, what we're trying to do is stack pride over guilt, right? Where focus goes, energy goes, results soon follow. So if we're thinking about pride, let's take a couple minutes right now, and I'll do it with you. And we're just going to create a list of the things that you can be proud of. Now you might say to yourself, "Oh man, I've been told not to be proud, or I don't want to brag, or all of those things." Well, I'm not asking you to make this list so that you can post it on social media and get accolades from everybody. This is for you. You're not necessarily going to tell everyone. It's just things that are important to you. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. We're trying to gain evidence to empower you and get you away from guilt. That's the first step here. So I'll just talk a little bit while you're making your list. You can also pause this video as you make your list. And, if I was making my list, I would start with, obviously the big things, but then I would allow myself to go down into the medium and the small things, because then you can just stack like crazy. And you might say to yourself, well, there's nothing I'm proud of. Oh, stop. There is so many things that if we just focus on them, we can find. Remember, if you go into a gold mine looking for dirt, you're going to find it. And you're going to find a lot of it. And it's really easy to find the dirt. But if you go into a gold mine looking for gold, again, you're going to go past the majority of the dirt, but that's not what you're going in there for. You're going in there for the gold. So what is something you could be proud about? You might say, well, I graduated, and got my degree. I show up consistently to work every week. I pay my bills, or maybe you pay your bills some of the time. I don't know. I am kind to people. I'm a nurturer. And then you can start to think about these things through situations. So, like last week, I was with my son or my daughter or a patient or a boss, and I had restraint, or I was able to help them when they couldn't help themselves. And pretty much what you're wanting to do with this list, as I ramble with you, is you want to create a list that is long. And I'm talking not just long, I'm talking long. Texas long, right? They say everything's bigger in Texas, so Texas long. Because when you were starting to feel any type of guilt, the first thing you're going to want to do, especially if you have a habit of feeling guilty, right? Because emotions that we experience are just like, they're not ours. And I know that sounds weird to say. Obviously, we are experiencing them, but they're not us. And I think that's important to say, because if we own our emotions as this is who we are, then the problem is they happen often, and then we just accept them. And that's not a healthy place to be, in my opinion, if you are looking to transform your body and life forever in your emotions. This is why you will never hear me say, if I ever am feeling depressed or feeling down, you'll never hear me say, I have X. Because by saying I have depression, I have ADHD, I have anxiety, I am anxious, I am depressed, that's not empowering emotions that we want to accept and, we'll say, embody. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they don't exist, and I'm not saying to not acknowledge them. You see, I experience depression. I experience anxiousness. I experience ADHD tendencies. I also experience joy and happiness, but I would say the emotions that I want to hold on to, I am joyous. I am happy. I'm a happy person. I'm not an anxious person. Why would I hold that over myself? Why would I do that to myself? Well, you say, well, I'm just telling the truth. I think there's a way to tell the truth and do it in a way that doesn't disempower you. We talk a lot about identity in this group, and it sounds corny. You hear me say the strongest force in the human personality is staying consistent with the way we see ourselves. And it's easy to get to a position that you want to achieve a goal. So we say, okay, I want this result. What are the actions? Just tell me the actions, tell me the actions, tell me the actions, and that will get you the result. But the problem is, you know the actions, or we know the actions, but we aren't doing them consistently, and then it comes back to identity. This is why you'll hear me say many, many times that 80% of whatever you want, whether it's changing your body, changing relationships, changing your life, it's psychology. 20% is mechanics. Of course, you can't, have the best approach, but be eating a surplus of calories and, doing completely the wrong stuff, because, then you're not going to get anywhere. But we all fundamentally know what to do. It's more just how do we consistently do it and feel pulled towards it, right, without willpower. And that's a lot of what you focus on. And this is in line with that. This is focusing on the foundational piece to being able to really have everything you want. So I do believe that once you were able to get this list, revisit this list, and really pump this list in, because remember, this isn't a one and done action. If you feel guilt consistently, if that is something that you experience, guilt often, the opposite of guilt is pride, like we've said. You have to stack. You have to stack the pride. You have to stack the actions that you're proud of, because when you do consistently, you will feel empowered. And then you do it enough times. Think of it like a garden in your mind. Everyone has a garden in their mind, whether they want to admit it or not. And if we got a microscope into your brain and we saw this garden, the question is, what is in there? Is it lush and nutritious and healthy, or is there poison grown everywhere? Now, if there is poison and nightshade that is planted everywhere, that doesn't mean you inherently are bad or that there's something wrong with you, because there's not. It just means your garden needs some pruning. And that's okay. And we can do that together. You can take the first action right now. How do you start to reduce the pruning? How do you start to reduce the poison? Well, the first thing you have to do is change your input. So by listening to this right now, this is your input, making your list of things you're proud about. If you're, struggling with guilt, I can't do these mannerisms or they'll pop up on the screen. I have that new Mac update. You can probably hear my dog right now as well, which is why I have these on. So apologies if you hear some background noise. But if we want to make this change, it's repetition. So we have to prune the negative, not allow it in. Don't plant negative seeds. And if we're aware that a negative seed is being reinforced, like we're feeling guilty, we whip out our list. We whip out our list of things we're proud about. We read them and we embody them. One of the most powerful actions I've ever done. So I'll tell you a story or just a situation with me that impacted my life so profoundly. So profoundly. It's not around guilt, but it is around anxiousness. So I have experienced anxiousness, right? And anxiousness is essentially just energy. It's energy that wants to be expelled out. And that anxiousness can also come from fear, right? Fear that you're not going to be able to pay your bills, or fear that you're going to lose your relationship, or fear around anything, right? And for me, when we were, or I'll say many times in my life, I've experienced this fear being an entrepreneur. I have fear in owning my own business, I should say. I've had fear around, oh my gosh, like, are we going to be able to make it through this tough time? COVID was a great example. And the thing that's helped me the most, waking up in the morning and experiencing anxiousness, is identifying what is the opposite of anxiousness. What's the opposite of fear? Well, we know the opposite of guilt is pride. So what's the opposite of anxiousness? Well, the best thing I could come up with was gratitude. The opposite of fear is gratitude, right? When you're fearful, what are you doing? You're holding on to everything. You're saying, oh my gosh, like, you're staying where you are. You're disempowered. You're anxious. You're, frantic. When you're grateful, oh, I have more than enough. Here, take some, right? Oh, I'm feeling great. You want to give. Gratitude is, to give. They go very similar, hand in hand. So one of the things that I started my mornings with was the first thing I'd do, because like when I'm telling you I was anxious or I was experiencing anxiousness, man, I'd be waking up sometimes at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., after only sleeping 3, 4, 5 hours, and just like, I can't even go back to sleep because my heart's racing and I'm like fearful. And that went on for months and months, until I took that action. And that action was waking up in the morning and I had a gratitude folder. And at first, I didn't have a gratitude folder, so I had to make it. And in this gratitude folder, and as human beings, I think that we do better with videos and visuals than just text, but you can do whatever you want. I had a video folder of my son and my wife and my dog, and a bunch of memories and times that I enjoyed very much. And I could not help but feel better. I could not help but sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and watch these, and have Easter morning where my wife and I we did a really special thing for my son's essentially first Easter that he could experience, being like a 1.5-year-old. And we recorded the whole thing, and I could relive that in the moment, and I could feel that gratitude towards that experience. And as I do, I start to calm, and then I watch the next and the next and the next, and then before you know it, I'm no longer fearful. I'm no longer anxious. And when I'm in this position, guess what happens? Well, now I can make better decisions. I'm empowered to do the right action. Because I promise you, those mornings when I was anxious and I was holding on for dear life, sure, I'm motivated to go do work or go like solve the problem, but the actions I take may not be the best ones because they're coming from a place of fear and anxiousness. Whereas once I took that 5 to 10 minutes to sit there and embody gratitude, because man, oh yeah, hey, actually, this stuff that I'm really worried about, it's not nearly as important as this stuff that I'm looking at right now. And yeah, I've been many times in my life being a business owner, I've had financial struggles. But those financial struggles really weren't a struggle at all compared to if I had a sick family member, or if I had a death of my child, or a death of my wife, or even my dog. Really, our problems the way we feel about our problems can shift just by changing perspective. And it's really hard to sit alone with yourself with no stimulation or input and say, be, anxious or frustrated and think your way out of it. Think your way out of feeling frustrated, guilty, or really any disempowering emotion that you experience, whether it be anger, fear, sadness. It's really hard to sit there and think your way out of it. I think it was Einstein that said you cannot solve a problem in the means at which it was created. If your mind created a problem, because your mind did, right? Your experience of the world is how you see it. It's happening to you. Your reality is different than reality. Your reality is how you see the world. You know, two people can look at the exact same situation and have a different experience because of how they view it. So your experience of life happens within your mind. I'm not over here to say we live in the Matrix. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, like, you know, it's not what happens. Life is not what happens to you. It's how you react to it. 100%. How you respond to it, right? So you can't sit there and try to solve the problem thinking about it. You need a new stimulus. And for me, when I was feeling fearful and anxious, how I got out of it? Gratitude. Watching the videos of my son playing, watching me playing with him at the beach. The first time, like, I have all these memorized now. I close my eyes and I see them because I watch pretty much the same videos every morning, because I don't want to get back into that place of anxiousness. I don't want to get back into that place of fear, because the emotions that we feel are just habits. You know, everyone has an emotional home, right? Whether that's, you know, that we only have five or six primary emotions, right? Joy, sadness, anger, disgust, and fear. 5. That's it. So what's the one or two that you feel the most? I'll be honest with you. Right now in my life, I am reinforcing joy because it's not natural for me. It was when I was a kid. But I think what happens as we get older and we experience hardships is we kind of get the joy knocked out of us. It's a no wonder that a lot of old people are bitter. Life is hard and they get it knocked out of them. But then you meet the rare occasion of the person who's in their, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even, that you ask them how they're doing and they go, honey, if it was any better, I'd say the deck was stacked. And you're like, I want what she's having. You know what I'm saying? Joy is not something that happens to you. It's something you choose to experience and look for. And I'm a big believer in that. And I don't believe that the emotions that I don't believe the emotions that I experience have to be the ones that I experience. I don't. Like, don't get me wrong, circumstances play a big role, but I can choose how I respond and react. And then if we think about how your brain's designed as well, like the neuroscience of it, we all have these neuron pathways, right? And yes, they're harder to build as an adult, but the more emotions you feel, the more you feel an emotion, the easier you're making it for your brain to experience that emotion by utilizing that neural pathway. Think of it like you're in an Amazon, and right now, one of the emotions I experienced a lot, especially early in my entrepreneurial career, was anger, because I used it as fuel. I had a big chip on my shoulder, baby. I was mad at everyone. I was mad at, the trainers that, were bullying me and trying to kick, essentially bully me out of a space. I was mad at my dad for, not caring enough or not feeling like he cared enough when I was a kid. I was mad at everyone, man. I mean, you tell me. I was working out hard, and I used that as energy. But eventually you realize that, hey, that anger actually is destroying me. I'm tired all the time, and acid destroys the vessel in which it's stored. It's really hard to hold on to negativity and not have it affect you, which is why I actually changed from listening to super angry music when I worked out, many years back, to listening to something personal development, Zig Ziglar or Tony Robbins when I worked out, or I listened to empowering, uplifting music, not like, angry music. Because look, what goes in is what's going to come out, right? Your input determines your thinking, which determines your actions, which determines your results. So one of the things I want to be is happy. So if I want to really be happy, I have to reinforce it, right? All interesting things to think about. Any of those negative emotions that you're experiencing, if you can just focus on gaining evidence for the opposite, your brain will start to accept it. Michelle says good morning. Also, like, does any of this make sense? Like, is any of this beneficial? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Michelle, it's good to see you. Just saw your comment come through. So hopefully this is beneficial. I don't want to ramble on too long, but, as I talk to you guys, we're all on our journey. Every coach, I would hope, is still trying to make themselves better, right? I remember one of the best compliments I ever got from my now wife was when she wasn't my wife. I remember she was looking at me and she said, "You know what I love about you?" And I said, "What?" And I was ready. "Your muscles are so big. You're whatever, just joking, of course. Your abs are so defined." No, just kidding. And she goes, "You're really good at being human." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she said, "You're just always trying to make yourself a better human. Whether it be," and at the time we were talking about the 7 areas of mastery, life mastery. It's like you have physical body, emotions and meaning, relationships, time, career, finances, contribution, and fun. And she said, "Yeah, you're just really good at identifying where you are and what the next action is to make that area better." And I love that because that truly does define me. I'm happy with that definition because, yeah, I do believe in this idea of constant, never-ending improvement. We're like a tree. We're either growing or dying. And there's been many times in my life that I was dying. And yeah, maybe a little bit physically, but mainly spiritually. And I'm not talking religion. I'm talking about emotion. I think a lot of us, if you're in our program now or out there and you're trying to solve this problem for yourself of body transformation, it can feel like we're a shell of ourselves, and it can feel like you lost your spark. And I've been there many times in my life. The goal that I would have for myself or anyone else out there is try to minimize the amount of time you're in there. There's no reason that you have to be a certain way for years until you can bounce out of it. People say time heals all wounds. I disagree. I don't think it's time. I just think it so happens that over time you have enough time or you have enough actions, right? You have enough stimulus to get over it. But if you can megadose the stimulus and you can do 10 years of stimulus in 6 months, you can get over it faster. This is why therapy is effective in a lot of cases. Why? Well, because instead of on your own, maybe never getting over it or it taking 20 years of you addressing it here and there over the years, you can just hyper focus it to 6 months or 3 months. You can get over it. So, all interesting things. A lot of these videos that I make, I really make as my self-talk. As I'm talking to you now, I'm really reinforcing this in myself. Because I think there's different levels to input. The first level of input is what you hear, right? A second level of input, which is more powerful, if we're thinking about a logarithmic scale, it could be 10 times more powerful, is the spoken word. You've heard it, now you're saying it. If I say something and I profess something, that's going to ingrain it quite a lot more. So as I'm talking to you and I'm saying, hey, look, whenever you're experiencing a negative emotion, whether it be guilt, you need to switch that and focus on the pride. Create your list of all the things you can be proud about, and I promise you, you will start to feel proud, and that guilt will start to dissipate over time. Not once, but repeatedly. Same thing if you're feeling fearful or anxious. Hey, focus on gratitude. How are you going to do that? The way I do it is I have my gratitude videos of my son and my wife and my dog and my family. And I realize that whatever I'm fearful about really isn't that important compared to my family and my the people I care about most. It is so interesting that the quality of our life is so directly impacted by how we view it. And I'll tell you, if my life isn't the way that I want it to be, it's up to me to change it. Nobody's coming to save me. There'll be people that help me along the way, but at the end of the day, it's up to me. And it all starts with a fundamental belief that I have the power to change. If you do not believe you have the power to change, you will not take any action. John Maxwell says that hope in the future is power in the present. If you want to feel empowered, You have to believe that your future is going to be better than your past. And if you don't believe that right now, you need to shift your focus. You need to change your evidence. Because I'm positive right now, so I'll give you an example. Right now, I do think I have an empowering future. I think the future is going to be better than the past for a lot of reasons. But I promise you that with my life circumstances, I could just as easily focus on why my life will be worse. And if I do that, I will not feel empowered. And I will feel weak. And I will wither. This is why therapy, having a coach, just having another human being that can help guide you through this is so powerful. And I'll be the first to say that's been my biggest mistake over my 20s, and it's still a mistake today, is that I don't take enough time to be with a coach. I tend to feel good, and then I'm like, I don't need anyone, which is fine. And then I usually am good for a long time, and then, we all fall. And then I reach out where it's like, if I just kept that coach all the way through, I probably wouldn't have that drop, It's really hard to solve a problem on our own in our mind, right? And hopefully that's what these videos are to you. Hopefully they're an opportunity just to question that thinking, question the align. And I know they're not as sexy to watch as TikTok clips, but that's why we post on TikTok too. So that way it's a little more sexy for you. But even if this reaches one person in the group, which I know it will eventually, then we're, it's a good day for me. Something that I talk about my team a lot is let's not get caught up in the numbers. It's easy to look at the group that we have now. We have 16,700 RNs in this group. Our goal is to impact 100,000. We've made some big change this year. It's great. And whether, you get started with one-on-one coaching or not, we want to have that impact. And I say often, let's not get caught up in the numbers. Because, I'm a big Mr. Rogers fan, and it was his interview with Charlie Rose that changed it all for me. This was back in the 90s, before his death. And Charlie had asked him, how does it feel to know that you've impacted these millions and millions of kids over all these decades? He kind of just shakes his head and looks down and says, people get so caught up in numbers. How many people this, how many that. He goes, what's really important is that we can be 1-to-1 right here, right now. And he said, one of the greatest gifts I've ever gotten is that my parents, adult figures, were 1-to-1 with me. And I think that's crucial. That's why I take the time every morning to read our reviews. Right? That's one of the ways I get out of fear and into gratitude. Right? All I do is I go to our website and I scroll down and I just read every review. And you can't help but read a review like Belinda's, Charmaine in the group. She says, I believe this program literally saved my life, and she goes on and talks about it. How can you not feel empowered watching that, listening to that, reading that? And then reading one after another, and it's like, man, okay, we're doing the right stuff. But it's easy to get caught up in the few naysayers that are telling you otherwise because it doesn't fit within their, we'll say, scope of reality. So yeah, don't get caught up in the numbers. There's a story I remember about that, actually, that Zig Ziglar talks about. He says there is a grandfather and his son, or a grandfather and his grandson, and they're walking on the beach, and washed up on shore are sand dollars. And as you know, sand dollars are living organisms. And the grandfather bends down, picks one up, throws it back in the ocean. Keeps walking with his grandson, picks up another, throws it in the ocean. And after doing this a few times, the grandson says, "Now, Granddaddy, why are you doing that? Why are you taking, a few of these sand dollars and throwing them in the ocean?" And the grandfather says, "Well, these are living organisms. They're alive. And they've washed upon shore, and without me throwing them back, they will die." And the grandson looks at the grandfather and he says, "Right, but there are thousands and thousands of sand dollars on shore. What difference could it possibly make?" And the grandfather just looked at the grandson, and he said, "Well, to this sand dollar, it means the world." And that's the way I try to reframe, to look at every single person in this group, every single client we get to impact, every like, every comment. Everyone here is a human being just like me, and I try to look through the frame of my mother, right? I love my mom greatly. And I think that if we can look at others through the lens of how we look at ourselves or the people we love the most, we'll be willing to do more for them. And how can you do things for others and not feel great? I don't think it's possible. So as I'm here spending some time talking to you, it makes me feel good. Because whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, somebody might come across this, and for them, it's exactly what they needed to hear. And to me, I don't even remember making the podcast, because it was so long ago. But for them, it's exactly what they needed to be able to get them past wherever they are. So, if that is you, thanks for listening. Thanks for allowing me to feel like I'm doing something good. I appreciate you guys. I hope that this reaches that one person. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching and discovering how we get the results we do for our clients, I'll put a link above or below, and you can check it out and schedule a call with our team. If it's a good fit, you can move forward with our coaching to help you with your very own RM body breakthrough. I love you guys, and if there's anything to remember and embody, it's the belief that the best is yet to come. I promise you, your future can be better than your past. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.